Thought I would start with a couple of quotations from the book. One being, "The infinite is endless. It has no end. This, however, is not like in mathematics, where we suppose an infinite line, a sequence that continues forever in either direction, but that is bounded to a narrow domain. It is actually more appropriate to say that the infinite is unbounded. There are and cannot be borders or bounds to its domain. Its domain is simply all. A definition requires the making finite, the defining of boundaries, so these can be drawn to light in the description. So the infinite cannot be defined because to border it would be to miss it, to not indicate it." And I'll add one more here. "We can know that when we talk about the infinite, we are talking about that which exists beyond all boundaries and is without end. This conception does not and cannot, by definition, give us an accurate picture to hold in our minds about the infinite, but it does give us an understanding of the nature of the infinite, the necessary qualifications it would need to uphold in order to be evidenced." Um, could you please start off by describing your perception of the infinite and what you're talking
Um,
about here?
well, I'll start with the going back to the chapter title, and the chapter title is "The Myth of the Finite," and it's in this first section of the book, which is bad mythologies, things that we believe that we shouldn't believe, in my opinion.
Mhm.
Um, and so this chapter is talking about whether we think of life, existence, fundamental reality, whatever word you might want to use for it, as infinite or finite. And the prevailing view, whether conscious or not, I think, is to view life, existence as finite.
Mhm.
And the infinite's just kind of like a weird thing that mathematicians play with, or people think about it the way that's way out there on the outside of space, or whatever that might be. So I think that first one you pulled out is a good one because it's aimed at pushing us further in what we think about the infinite. Because a lot of times people's only exposure to the concept of infinity, well, even there, you're once you've made it the concept of infinity, you've separated it and put it as a delineated thing in a specific place. But the issue with normal conceptions of the infinite is like an infinite line. Like just imagine a line on a paper going, and it just goes on forever. And you say it's infinite. You say it's infinite. So that's mathematically useful, but it's nothing relevant to, or it's hardly relevant to the actual infinity. And the issue is, okay, yes, it goes on forever, whatever that means, or it goes on to infinity, but it's still, like I said, a narrow domain. A line is one point extended. So the real bounds of infinity, you'd have to take that line and expand it not just to the whole page, but around the whole world and the universe and then through time. And so it really has nothing to do with a line or a set of constituents. We think of infinite numbers, or um, you could get wacky and be like infinite ice cream or whatever it is. But anytime you have a category attached to it, that category is actually limiting. So infinity not only involves numbers and quantities and distances, but it also involves grass. And we'll probably get into this later, but the smell of grass, the perception of grass, um, and conversations and telephone poles and dogs. And there's nothing is outside the bounds of something that is truly infinite. And so that's one step in the process of starting to talk about infinity and wondering whether we're dealing with infinite existence, or whether things are as most people, they probably seem things are finite. Like, look, there's a book over there that's finite, you know. This conversation's going to be finite. We have the habit of thinking of things as finite, but this chapter is about questioning, is that habit reflective of basic reality? And by basic, I mean fundamental, essential, foundational, or is it just a habit? And that, so it's bringing up that question and trying to get into that issue.